Welcome to the Carnival of Souls. I'm your host, Clockwork Ghosty, and tonight I'll have a co-host, Vampy. Tonight we'll be talking about the recent tweets about Dear David. Let's begin. Recently there's been some buzz on Twitter about a ghost child called Dear David. Now, I don't do Twitter a lot. In fact, I read about this on Facebook. Curious to see what it was all about, I clicked the link that led to an article consisting of Adam Ellis's tweets. Reading through them, it was kind of your average ghost story, and I was wondering, like Vampy, if perhaps the guy just wasn't working himself up. But as I continued to read and got to the end of his tweets that ended November 6th, I saw the pictures he snapped, and my mind went into what I like to call noob mood. Creepy kids are one of the things that actually do make my skin crawl. So if this is all a hoax, it's a good one. If it's real, I think Ellis should get out of that apartment and perhaps talk to someone who can help him be rid of his problem. If you haven't heard anything about this, then let me explain the story to you. Ellis had been having dreams about a ghost child haunting him. One day, though, during a bout of sleep paralysis, he saw the child sitting in a green rocking chair in his bedroom, staring at him. The ghost child had a strange, misshapen head. Later, in another dream, he spoke to a child who asked him if he had spoken with Dear David. He asked for more information, and she told him he could ask Dear David anything, as long as he only asked 2 questions and addressed him as Dear David. Should he ask Dear David 3 questions, the ghost child would kill him. What do people do in this instant? I would try my damnedest not to talk to the ghost at all and avoid him like the plague. Ellis didn't heed the warning. The next time he dreamt of Dear David, the ghost was sitting in the rocker in his room, staring at him once more. Ellis proceeded to ask the ghost how he died. The ghost answered that he died in an accident in a store. Ellis asked him what happened in the store. The ghost answered that a shelf was pushed over onto his head. He asked who pushed the shelf, but got no answer. Realizing his mistake, Ellis woke up feeling terrified. Later, he tries to research an accident in the area using different variations of D male names, and finds nothing. A few weeks pass, and the apartment above him becomes vacant, so he moves into it. He forgets about Dear David, and when he does think about him again, thinks that maybe the ghost lost track of him because he moved. Starting about August 3rd, Ellis's cat started to sit in front of the door at midnight, as if watching something. I don't own cats. I don't know how they act.
I, however, do own cats. I have 3 cats, and they tend to act strange all the time. And so an explanation for that is that they could actually be missing their previous home and could be, wanting to go back there. And so they're trying to convince him that, hey, we need to get out of here and we need to go back home.
Me, on the other hand, I think that sometimes animals have a way of sensing things that humans can't sense. Cats might be sitting at the door because they sense something's not right outside, but that's just what I think. Ellis started taking pictures and videos of the cats to document what was going on. He even took a picture through his peephole, too scared to look through it himself. The first one he thought maybe had a smudge in it, so he took a second one that shows the smudge is gone. My thought on that at first was I was actually looking at the wrong part of the picture and thought something was crouching. But when I saw the closer up picture, I saw that it was just a shelf. Another reason why, for a bit, I wondered if maybe Ellis wasn't freaking himself out. On August 10th, the cats became a bit more vocal as they sat at the door. Ellis got another video and then put salt at the door. The next night, Ellis set up a sound app to capture any sounds that may happen in the night. He caught some static in one, a snap, and himself groaning, and an electric noise. Getting ready to leave his house for the weekend, Ellis snapped a picture of himself where another Twitter user, Psychokinetic Editing, thought he saw something strange in the background. They blew up and circled what they saw. I'm not really sure if it's something ghostly or just an optical illusion. August 13th. Ellis got a Polaroid camera and started taking pictures around his house. When he took a picture of his hallway, the picture come out completely black. The rest was pretty normal. To make sure the picture wasn't just undeveloped, he opened the pack to see that undeveloped pictures were generally white. He did say, take this part with a grain of salt, and I agree. That could be any kind of camera issue.
So do I, because I've owned several Polaroids, and 9 times out of 10, in each pack that you have, you're going to have a dud that does not develop.
Ellis went on to take a picture of the hallway with his camera and with his phone. Phone picture was fine. Camera was black. Kinda interesting, but again, I don't know anything about cameras lighting and all that. Ellis went on to sage the house in an attempt to stop his problem. That night, he dreamed of dear David again. In the dream, his room was full of a hazy smoke. He could see the ghost child in the chair across the room. He said the ghost seemed smaller, like he had shrunk. Dear David didn't say anything this time, just looked at Ellis. On August 17th, Ellis awoke to his room feeling like it was shaking. There was a thunderstorm later that evening, and Ellis dreamt of dear David dragging him through an abandoned warehouse by the arm. The next morning, he had a bruise on his arm, but admitted he could have heard it in the night before and not realized. He brushed it off and went on to get coffee. On his way, he passed a food cart repair depot, but noticed that after 4 years, the place was abandoned, giving it the appearance of an old abandoned warehouse. The only thing left in it was a green chair. That's a bit spooky. When Ellis posted again on August 25th, he said his cats now started sitting at the door at 10 p.m. and cried for about 15 minutes before wandering off. He had gotten used to the old routine, so this was new. At 10:30 one night, he started getting phone calls from an unknown number. He answered it once to see what he heard. He got an electric static sound similar to what he had caught with the sound app at night, then a tiny voice whisper hello. He said the way it sounded, not a question or a greeting, just a statement, freaked him out. He almost didn't even hear it. It was so quiet. Panicking, he hung up. I can't blame him. I probably would have too, and tossed the phone. He ended up watching TV till dawn the next morning, too scared to go to sleep. I can't blame him for that one either. Ellis ended up moving the green chair from his room to another part of the apartment. He also got a nanny cam and began to record things. On one occasion, he caught the green chair rocking, and on another, a turtle shell he had on the wall fell off without having been messed with. The rocker was pretty interesting, and he said no air was on or windows open. The turtle shell, I think about the pictures that fall off my walls at all the times, for no reason seemingly. Sometimes things fall. A nail isn't holding good anymore or gets loose and things fall. Another video shows one of the cats jumping over something unseen, while yet another shows the cat sitting on its haunches on the couch and batting at something invisible. Okay, that'd be freaky to me, but like before, I don't know much about cat behavior. Ellis seems to think this is odd behavior for his cats though, so yeah, not spine-tingling, but very spooky. Ellis began having nightmares more frequently then, and with all that was going on, that's understandable. In September, he walked past the warehouse and found the door closed. Curious, he took a picture through the window to see if he got anything. In the upper right part of the picture, he thought he saw a face. Looking at the picture, I mistook the insulation as a head, and it took me a moment to figure out what I was looking at. I started to wonder again if Ellis wasn't working himself up into a fright. Later, Ellis took a trip to Japan. While there, he found an interesting statue. On the statue was a child with a dented head. I thought that was a spooky coincidence. He was much more terrified. A Twitter user provided some information on the sculpture, while Vampy mentioned the dented head of the child in the statue could be erosion.
I looked at the picture and I noticed a lot of things about it. The dented area of the child's head, actually it does give the impression that the head is dented in, but it's actually erosion, which generally happens to a lot of bronze statues over time. And another thing that could have made it look like that the head was dented was the angle that he was taking a picture. Because if you look very, very close, you can just barely see the curvature of his head right directly below the shoulder of the woman that's holding him.
In October, after returning home from Japan, Ellis reported that his electricity was starting to act up. 2 light bulbs went out in the hallway within a week, and the backlight on his LED TV started to flicker on and off by itself. The first sounds like typical electrical issues. The TV one sounds a bit more weird, and the TV would have ended up out in the yard if it was in my house. One night, it continued to go on and off and finally stopped and hasn't worked since. One morning, after taking a shower, he heard a faint scratching noise at the door. Once more afraid to look through the peephole, he took a picture through it. The blur he got back is a little weird and creepy. A Twitter user, Shane Hawkins, drew what he thought was through the peephole, making this all a bit more unsettling. After this, time passed and Ellis had people actually wanting to come investigate the situation, but he turned them down. I can understand the privacy thing, but this also makes people think all this is a hoax on his part.
I actually would think that he would, want to have a little bit of concrete evidence that he's really not, just freaking himself out, or, he's really not hearing things or seeing things himself that, aren't really there and aren't really paranormal. So I would think that, he would allow at least, one or two paranormal investigation teams to come in and maybe, validate some of the things that he believes and sees that's been going on.
Passing the warehouse yet again, it was open this time and had a hearse in it. Now, as creepy as that is, that happened in October, and there are many reasons a hearse would be parked there. October 25th rolled around, and Ellis found his cat sitting in the dining room looking up at the window. He looked out and across at the roof to the other building and didn't see anything. He went to the kitchen to get a bottle opener for a beer he had and looked out the window to see someone now on the roof looking at him. Seeing the picture he took is where my nope mode kicked in. I know, it could be anyone on the roof, but in the next picture, the figure is gone. Plus, the person looks like a baby. Who lets their baby wander a roof at that time of night? Or at any time, actually. It's very, very freaky. Ellis did what I would have done in such a situation. Drank 5 beers, so he was too drunk to be scared. So now we're back to the November 6th post. Ellis was sleeping the night before and ended up having another bout of sleep paralysis. Dear David appeared in a chair in his room, and while Ellis lay freaking out, yet mostly unable to move, the ghost boy was starting to move. Thinking he may be at his end, Ellis finally got control of his arm and was able to grab his phone and take pictures as Dear David got off the chair and come towards him slowly. He was murmuring something as he made his way over to Ellis. That's when he woke up to broad daylight and no trace of the ghost child anywhere. Well, almost anywhere. When Ellis checked his phone, he found 3 terrifying pictures. These are what did it for me and make this story scary. I'm not sure if this is all a hoax or real, but either way, this is a pretty interesting and scary story, real or fake. It is definitely memorable. I'll keep following along if he posts more to see what else comes of the situation.
Personally, I think there could be a lot of unexplained things in his story, but I also think that he may have been contributing to it. He may have been working himself, overworking his mind, getting really, really anxious about everything, and then, just snowballing from there. So I'm not really a skeptic, but I'm not really believing in everything that's going on too.
So, what do you all think? Leave us a comment in the comment section below, and join us again for more fun, fear, and entertainment. Later.